And so I would sit back there and I'd make up words. I made up words. I loved words. I still love words. Words are fascinating.
Do you remember any that you made up?
Oh, yeah. I wrote this one to her. I made up this letter to a friend of mine. She found it, came waddling over to me with the letter. You could hear her coming. Her thighs were apologizing to each other. Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, pardon me. She wore corduroy breeches to school one day and started 6 fires. I'm not kidding. But anyway, see, stuff like that I made up. I made all that up. But anyway, but she did come to me with the letter and she said, "What is this?" I said, "Can't you read?" And she said, "Why don't you write something that makes sense? This makes no sense." And I said, "Okay." And you know, you need to be careful what you tell a hyperactive 6th grader to do. I just did what she said. So the next day I took her letter and I was so excited. I thought, she's going to like me. She's going to think this is funny. And it said, "Dear Miss Barth, your feeble attempt to participate in any intelligent conversation only goes to exaggerate your already pathetic lack of mental ability. Sincerely, Mark Lowry." I got a 3-day vacation. And the worst part of that day is Daddy came home. He came into my room where I was waiting on him. He said, "Mark."
Is Popeye?
He said, "Don't you laugh while I'm talking to you, boy." I thought, well, then quit looking like Popeye. Yes. But he said, "Mark, if you ever," my dad really said this, he said, "if you ever write anything like that again, don't sign it." My dad was a lawyer.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, a lawyer. That's good legal advice.
So, obviously, we're talking about some of your childhood inspiration for your work. What about now? Where do you find...
Out of life.
Life.
Everything comes from life. I asked God recently, please, let me have some new material that doesn't hurt. Because I never learn anything on a good day. It has to be a mayday. Mayday, mayday, mayday. The ship's going down before I take notice. And really, this whole journey is about the journey. It ain't about the arrival. And you need to take notes. And especially, like I call it hitting Shepherd. There's a street in our town called Shepherd Drive, and I had a motorcycle wreck on it. And I broke my leg and shattered it, and it's another long story that we can't tell in a minute. But it's a long story. But I learned a lot that day. And also, I went through a tornado on a houseboat. I've been through 2 tumor surgeries. I mean, if you live long enough, you're going to go through stuff, you know. But, and the thing I learned about the houseboat experience is the next morning I said, you know, if I had known I was going to live through that, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Because it was a blast. And when we get to heaven, we're going to look back over our lives and say, you know what? If I'd known I was going to live through that, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And you're going to live through it, so enjoy it. That's what I learned from that. And so I try to find humor that not only is funny, but leaves you with something to hold on to make it through the week. You know, like, oh, I can enjoy this now.
That's cool.
Rather than when we get home.
Well, actually, we have one of your videos here. And we're just going to cut to that real quick. So,
All right.
Here you go. All right, well, welcome back to Raw TV. That was Mr. Lowry's parody, one of his many parodies that I've watched since my childhood.
I told you to call me Mark, not Mr. Lowry. That's my dad.
I'm from Alabama.
I know I can be your dad. How old are you?
I'm 23.
Yeah, I could be your dad. Gosh, I hate that. But see, Mr. Lowry's my dad. And when people start saying sir and yes, sir to me, no, sir, at first, it's really offensive. But then you get used to it because you're old. You just got to face it. You know, Father Time kicks everybody's tail. Yeah. And you know what's great about being ugly from the get-go?
No.
You got nothing to lose. I'm serious. It is so cool to go back to my high school where I was ugly. I mean, I'm pretty good looking now compared to what I was. I mean, I was all nose at that point. At least my head has grown to fit the nose. And I had acne bad. I fell asleep on the beach one day, and when I woke up, a blind man was reading my face. That's awful, isn't it?
That's awesome.
But now I go back, and, you know, all the pretty ones have gotten ugly. And or else they get that, you know, that sock monkey facelift. Anyway.
Okay, so I know you went on tour,
Yeah?
and which is something that all entertainers aspire to do. Do you have any like funny experiences?
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Apparently a lot.
Yes.
You know, I've been on tour my whole life. It's just every weekend, you know. I mean, they call it a tour, but I don't go on like month-long tours. I'm too old for that and didn't like it when I was young enough to do it because it's too long to be away from home. But, let me tell you one of the most horrifying experiences of my life on stage. It was at a family fest, a Gaither production. And people ask for my most embarrassing moment. Well, you're about to hear it. I got two, actually, but this is the worst one. I was on stage, and I was doing a monologue, and I heard someone heckling me from the Gaither audience. You know, this is an older audience. I mean, you cannot find a handicapped parking space at a Gaither concert. I mean, you better get there early if you want a handicapped parking space. But I was heckled. I heard someone say, "Your face is going to stick like that." Well, now, I learned my craft in churches. I wasn't used to lights being in my eyes. I wasn't used to not being able to see the audience. I love to see the audience. I love looking in their eyes and, you know. And with Gaither, it's all lights, you know. It's a big show and production, and you can't see anything. The audience is dark, and they could all get up and leave. You'd never know it. And they're all about, 10 years older than God, most of them. And I love them because I feel young around them. I mean, they make me feel like a kid. Well, anyway, somebody was saying, "Your face is going to stick like that." Because I make faces, evidently, when I talk.
Really? I didn't notice.
I didn't either until I saw a video in 1980 because I can't see them. That's another story. But anyway. So finally I realized I got to answer this because people are starting to laugh around him. And he sounded sane and normal. And what you should do, and I have learned now, is you put a spotlight on the person. You do not talk to a person you cannot see. That is what I learned from this experience. And this is so important, Topher.
Okay.
When you go out and do your comedy stuff, if you can't see them, don't talk to them. Because this is what happened. I remembered a line I used in high school assemblies way back in the day when I did high school assemblies. When I'd pick on kids, they love it. The meaner you were to them, the more they loved it. And the kids with the black fingernail polish and the weird hair, you pick them out and pick on them because that's why they look like that. They want attention. And so you do it and you win a friend, So I thought, so I just used one that popped in my head. The guy was heckling me. I said, "Yeah, that's what happens to you when your mother takes drugs while she's pregnant." That's what the audience did. and in high school assemblies, the kids would go, "Yeah!" And, they loved it. And the audience, the air pressure in that room changed so much I lost 3 fillings, I'm telling you. And that I'm dying, that dying sweat, when you're on stage and you're bombing and no one's laughing, that lonely drop of sweat that runs down your back and lands in your underwear was happening to me. And then I get through the story to crickets. I mean, the audience had turned from laughter to crickets. They had turned on me horribly. And I didn't know how to win them back. I didn't even know what I'd done, really, until I sat next to Michael English, who was as white as a ghost. And I leaned over. I said, "What happened?" He said, I said, "What?" And I put my ear to his lips, and he said, "He's in a wheelchair." That's what happens to you when your mother takes drugs while she's pregnant. It took me 5 years to get over that, to even be able to go back into that auditorium and not to freak out. Of course, I apologized to and he loved it. He still comes to, he loved it. He loved the attention. It didn't bother him. But the audience thought I could see him. They thought I did it intentionally, and I would cut off my arm before I would do something like that. There's just nothing in me that would hurt a person in a wheelchair. I mean, or in any way, fashion, I just don't go there, and it was just horrifying. But you live over it. You get beyond it, and you learn from it, and that's what this whole life is anyway. It's boot camp. Right. This is where we learn to walk by faith. This ain't home.